What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, super pumped to bring this one to you guys. It's the must-own wide receivers. We're going to hit on several players in all stages of the draft and let you know which wide receivers we're really trying to land on our teams. Before we do get into the video though, stat of the day. Yesterday's stat of the day was which wide receiver led the league in target separation. The correct answer was Davante Johnson, who was actually featured in that video. As a player who's getting hype that we really like, this is clearly another reason for that. As for today's stat of the day, which wide receiver with at least 50 targets led the league in yards per reception on third down? Leave your answer in the comments section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. Also, be sure to check out our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Consider signing up for our draft package. Not only is it loaded with information and guaranteed to help you win your league, but you'll also have access not just for the offseason, but for the entire season as well. All-in access members are eligible for exclusive giveaways, courtesy of our friends at Pristine Auction. Most recently, a Davante Johnson signed jersey. So if that's something that interests you, go ahead and visit our website. Link as always in the description box below. Without further ado though, let's get right into the video. I'm going to start off with a high-end wide receiver one, just to give you guys an idea of the player we would most likely prefer if we're given an early draft pick and are targeting a wide receiver. That player is going to be Davante Adams. Clearly not everybody is going to be able to land him on their team. Having the option of even being able to draft him largely comes down to where your draft position is, but we do want to include him maybe as more of an honorable mention because Davante Adams, simply put, is a slam dunk of a pick. Surprisingly, there are a lot of question marks with the wide receiver ones this upcoming season. Think DeAndre Hopkins changing teams, unlikely to see the same target market share that he did, while also building chemistry with a new quarterback, getting accustomed to a new offense. That's risk. You have Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, now being led by Tom Brady, so another potential team with some learning curves, getting accustomed to playing with new players. So really, Davante Adams is the only other wide receiver we have as a tier 1 player, excluding Michael Thomas. Also considering it's very common for people to go running back heavy early on in the draft, Davante Adams is potentially a player that could fall behind some of those tier 2 running backs. Tier 2 running backs past Kamara, I'm talking Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders. There are leagues out there where you will see Davante Adams fall past these players. And while it may seem like you will be giving up some upside by taking a wide receiver over a stud running back, you will more than make up for it in safety when drafting Davante Adams. Simply put, the guy is insanely consistent. Believe it or not, over his last 33 starts, 28 of them have gone for double-digit fantasy points. That's right, he has an 85% chance whenever he steps foot on the field of producing double-digit fantasy points, and 33 games is a massive sample size. This offense, led by Aaron Rodgers, did nothing to bring in more weapons through free agency or the draft. The best weapon they brought in realistically is Devin Funchess, but has Devin Funchess ever shown us anything to be worried about? Even for a big-bodied player, he hasn't really been a red zone weapon on any offense he's been on. Davante Adams sees the heaviest usage inside the 20, more so than any other player, even that of Michael Thomas. While he only played in 12 games last season, he's still ranked 3rd in overall red zone targets, just 3 behind Michael Thomas, playing in 4 less games throughout the entire season. That's not an outlier either. 2018, he led the league in that area as well. And like I said, unlike some of the other wide receiver ones, this is a player who comes with 0 question marks heading into this season. Same quarterback, same weapons, same offense. We can safely expect the same production we've seen from him consistently over each of the past 3 seasons. I won't dive any further into him. We all know Davante Adams is a stud. Let's go over to a player I think a lot of people are a little hesitant on, and that's Allen Robinson of the Chicago Bears. There was a time where you could grab Allen Robinson as your wide receiver 2. Those days are over though. He's definitely climbing up. Right now he stands as the wide receiver 9 based on current ADP. We have him as the wide receiver 7, which for most people seems a bit egregious, but again, it's a pick that really doesn't have any risk and still presents a massive amount of upside. Let's start by talking about the safety. Last season, Chicago Bears ranked 29th in points scored per game. They also ranked 24th in passing when it comes to yardage. And it may be hard to believe, but Mitchell Trubisky only threw for 17 touchdowns last season. Yet even with all of those low offensive rankings, Allen Robinson ranked 6th in receptions, 13th in receiving yards, 6th in air yards, 9th in red zone receptions, 4th in targets. He played on the 7th most snaps in the entire league at the position, ranked top 5 at the wide receiver position position in target share percentage, and even when it came to deep passing, he received the 8th most deep targets in the entire league. It's insane to think this level of production came on such a poor offense. Now, heading into the 2020 season, Matt Nagy, he's a bit on the hot seat. He's going to have to produce. They brought in Nick Foles, so even if Trubisky does end up starting and playing poorly, they're going to pull the plug on him real quick. Insert Nick Foles, who is more of a prototypical pocket passer, who has still put together a 24-13 touchdown to interception ratio since 2017. Remember, Matt Nagy already has a history of working with Nick Foles. Matt Nagy does come from the Doug Peterson coaching tree, so the transition should be relatively seamless, and from what we saw last season, this offense performed virtually at its floor. Imagine the type of upside Allen Robinson can provide to your team if this offense turns into a potentially top 15 offense. While that is a stretch to think they could make that much of a difference from one season to another, it's certainly in the realm of possibility. This team is still 1 year removed from a 12-4 finish, Matt Nagy winning Coach of the Year, and they made it deep into the playoffs before a disappointing loss to the Eagles, so to think that they can't bring back some of that offensive magic that they had, that would simply not be true. But the best part about Allen Robinson, he doesn't really need the offense to make massive improvements in order for him to smash this ADP. Through the final 6 games of the year, he averaged over 11.3 targets per game. If that type of volume were to span out through an entire season, that's just 2 targets shy than what Michael Thomas was able to get last season. You're talking about a player who could compete for the most targets in the entire league, yet some ADPs have him outside the top 12 wide receivers. If you think about it, it doesn't make sense, but let's move on to the next wide receiver. So we gave you a wide receiver 1, we gave you a player who could fall to a wide receiver 2, so let's get you a wide receiver 3. The next player we're talking about is Terry McLaurin of the Washington Redskins. The best part about this pick is that if you want him on your team, you could definitely target him with the earlier picks, the first round, second round. Oftentimes, the player pool available to us in those early rounds is largely dictated by our draft position, so it's very possible that somebody wouldn't even have the ability to draft Davante Adams or Allen Robinson, but Terry McLaurin, he is available for everybody to target. Right now, he's coming off the board as the wide receiver 26. We have him ranked several spots higher than that at wide receiver 21. As a player, he is extremely gifted and an incredible athlete. He runs a 4.35 40, ranking in the 98th percentile, a 95th percentile speed score, 77th percentile burst score, and he comes in with a solid size at 6 foot 208 pounds. Last year, he did lead all rookies in receiving, even finishing as the wide receiver 29, and that was as a rookie. Typically, we see massive improvement from year 1 to year 3 when it comes to rookie receivers, and his draft day price tag, it only went up 3 spots to the wide receiver 26. That alone would be enough to deem him as a value, but when you break into the numbers even further, you see a lot of really promising things, a lot of things you don't typically see with rookie receivers. For one, he came in and demanded a massive target market share. In fact, he ranked 2nd in the league in his target premium, and that makes a ton of sense. When he was targeted, the team found success. While there was piss poor play at quarterback, we all can agree to that. Whenever Terry McLaurin was targeted, the quarterback rating for the passer was 115.9. That actually ranked 10th. So you're telling me when Terry McLaurin was on the field and being targeted, he allowed these quarterbacks to perform as top 10 QBs. Only when targeting him though. So clearly, that's why his target market share was so high, and we should continue to see that as we head into the 2020 season. He was also very efficient on his targets, ranking 22nd in fantasy points per pass route ran and 19th in fantasy points per target. And again, this is a player with an insane amount of speed, yet he is also dynamic, boasting the #1 contested catch rate in the entire league. That's right, even better than all veterans. We're not just comparing him to rookies. He was the best receiver when it came to contested catch rates in 2019. We can't ignore these facts and not assume he's going to take strides and continue to develop heading into his 2nd year in this offense. And so far this offseason, the coaching staff has been very vocal about getting Terry McLaurin more involved. The wide receiver 4 we have for you guys is Darius Slayton of the New York Giants. Currently, he comes in as the wide receiver 46. We have him ranked as the wide receiver 36. So a massive gap there, but when we're talking these later rounds, we almost like to throw ADP out in a sense, because typically you have the players you're targeting in that range and you have the ones you're not touching. Darius Slayton is definitely one of those players we're targeting because in this range we need upside. We don't care about the floor, and Darius Slayton arguably has some of the highest upside out of any players being drafted around him. First off, this is a very old and injury prone wide receiving core. You have Sterling Shepard, Evan Engram, and Golden Tate. Golden Tate not getting any younger. Evan Engram, who's played in less games each of his 3 seasons as a pro. Then Sterling Shepard, who always seems to get banged up every other season. So realistically, there is a range of outcomes where Darius Slayton is the leading receiver on this team just due to injury. And if you know anything about the injury history of the players I just mentioned, it's not an unlikely outcome. We saw it last season. As a rookie, Darius Slayton stepped in and performed very well, but unfortunately the time that we saw him was a bit limited. Him and Daniel Jones though undeniably do have a strong connection. Darius Slayton actually ranked inside the top 10 when it comes to his fantasy points per target. So not only was the connection strong, Darius Slayton made the most of it. That's a major factor that's going to go in his benefit, even if he isn't the first read in this offense and he doesn't receive the most amount of targets out of all of the wide receivers. Knowing that he is the type of player to produce a high level of fantasy points on very few targets means he doesn't need a lot of volume in order to produce for your fantasy team. Now imagine if he does get that type of volume. We see this with players like Tyreek Hill, where he does have that combination of volume tied in with being one of the better players in the league and converting targets into fantasy points. And from what we saw from Darius Slayton last season, he gave us no reason to expect he can't continue to produce that way for the upcoming season. He runs a 4.39 40, ranking in the 95th percentile. He also has that height to be a red zone weapon. Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, they're not superior red zone weapons. Darius Slayton, however, he's 6'1". He proved to have a knack for reaching the end zone, scoring 8 touchdowns as a rookie. And the best part is the most injury prone player on this team would definitely be Evan Engram. And he's the only other player who could potentially be a more dominant red zone weapon than possibly Darius Slayton. One other thing to bear in mind, no matter what you think about this offense, they throw the ball a lot. They actually ranked 7th in total passing plays in 2019. And that was while being riddled with these injuries. Yes, Saquon was injured as well, but he's one of the running backs who receives a ton of passes out of the backfield. So to think a healthy Saquon Barkley is going to eliminate the volume in the passing game, it's just not a realistic expectation. So there should be plenty of volume and opportunities to go around, and there's a realistic potential of Darius Slayton being the main target in this offense come fantasy playoffs, which is when you need your players to perform the best. So when targeting players in the late rounds, look for upside. We definitely have him ranked well above ADP. So in that range, it's hard to find a better player to target than that of Darius Slayton. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. We really hope you enjoyed. Let us know who your must-own wide receivers are in the comment section. Also, don't forget, check out our draft package. There are way more targets available in that, as well as player breakdowns on all draftable players. But if you did enjoy this video, how about hitting that like button? If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We thank you all for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.